Everybody here, let's get into it. Yeah, let's do it. I'm out started. I'm out started. Yes. Let's get it started. Well, you know what that means. Let's get it started. Yeah, let's get it started. That means it's time to get started. Thank you so much for showing up tonight. Who are you and where are you from? I'm going to put Mike in the chat from Oklahoma, home of the one win away OKC Thunder. I know that doesn't mean the same thing to everyone, but that's all right.
And I am Emily from Oregon.
Fantastic, Emily. Thank you. And looks like we've got Steve on here too as well. Steve, if you don't mind, let us know where you're from.
Awesome.
We are super excited to be with you tonight. We're recording this. We've got some folks who will be here live, and we've also got some folks who will be watching on the replay. And we'll be sharing a lot of that. So we'll try to engage folks all the way around. That'll be loads of fun. I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. My name is Mike Conn. I am the CEO of Mike Conn Coaching and Consulting and author of the book Communication Culture, Volume 1, which we'll be talking a little bit about here. And man, I love this work. I love getting to speak and to coach. This business, the second greatest work in my life so far, next to being Gina's husband and Rayleigh Jackson and Jacob's dad and Aiden's father-in-law. And love getting a chance to do this. Emily and I are also exactly what to say certified guides. That's how we met. And loads of resources we'll be sharing on that end as well. I want to say to my partner and co-host, so excited to be here on the call again with you, Emily, both in person and on the replay. I had such a great time last time, and I'm really excited about what we're sharing tonight. 3 C's to a thriving workplace, number 2. All right, Emily, take it away.
Yeah, I'm Emily. I'm CEO of Emily Catherine Coaching. And like Mike said, we are both exactly what to say certified guides. That's how we met. And so super excited to share even just a little taste of exactly what to say and what we have in store for you guys this evening. I work primarily in the hearing healthcare world, work with front office teams, and then also in sales and hospitality as well. Just kind of coaching team members to teammates, which is Mike's coined term. And I love it. So yeah, I'm excited to bring together our exactly what to say work and my coaching work and Mike's amazing book, Communication Culture. And yeah, I'm excited for this evening.
Fantastic. Emily, thank you so much for that. The 3 C's, we're going to go ahead and just lay them all out for you real quick. C number 1 is culture. The way we do what we do and the way we allow it to be done. And I don't know about you, but for me, that's never just a sentence. It's always a song. And it takes me back to the mid 90s somewhere. Some of you, I don't know where you were at that point in time, but I always hear, this is how we do it. Like every single time I did a session this morning, a live session today. And I'm not. I'm happy to tell you I wasn't the only one singing that towards the end of the session. It's just a great way to remind us what culture actually is. It's the way we do what we do and the way we allow it to be done. Emily, what's the second C?
Yeah, second C of a thriving workplace is connection. And connection is all about that intentional influence. It's really being mindful about the influence that you're putting forward for your teams, especially as leaders. It's that trust and gratitude that's cultivated through meaningful conversations. And then our third C is clarity. And clarity is all about communicating purposefully and predictably. We talked last week, those that have watched the recording or that were there last week know that we talked about the triangle of trust from Phil's work and exactly what to say. And I think this is really, really important when we're talking about clarity, that we're communicating with certainty, with that curiosity, we're being purposeful and predictable so that others have the courage and the context to act with certainty. And yeah, so those are our 3 C's for a thriving workplace.
That's
Um,
so good. That's so good. If you're watching this on replay, just let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know that. We're for sure going to go back and watch it, and we'll have some resources to be able to send you at the end of the call as well. Emily, I didn't mean to hop in there and steal the thunder on the 3, 2, 1, the very first thing that we're going to talk about today.
no, you're good. That was a really great segue. So yeah, we are going to talk about 3 main components to a thriving workplace. So not just the 3 C's of a thriving workplace, but we're going to break down a couple different things. And the first one that we're going to talk about is something that I call the ACE framework. And again, last week talking about the triangle of trust, it's really linked to this ACE framework, which I think of as like these 3 pillars that really encompass your guest, client, customer interactions. In healthcare, sales, hospitality, you can use this framework to ace every customer interaction. And the first one, A, is authenticity. And that's all about having those real caring conversations. Um, Mike and I have talked a lot about curiosity-led questions and curiosity-led conversations. And curiosity it's the C in the ACE framework, but that comes from a place of authenticity and being genuine and having that level of integrity. You know, I like to coach the teams that I work with to start every patient interaction and conversation from a place of integrity and honestly care about the people that you serve. In healthcare and in a lot of sales focused work as well, you don't have a job to do if you don't have people to serve. So, I again, honestly, just caring about the people that you serve. And I've witnessed that firsthand, just the power of authenticity. So I'll share a little story before we jump to curiosity. But one of the teams that I was working with was having a lot of turnover, and I'm sure that you're a bit like me, and in managing teams and working with leaders, you fall into these seasons of really high turnover. It just happens. And so there's often in high turnover situations, you have these times where your company values are not in line with the whole team. Not everybody's on the same page because they came in after the annual strategic planning meeting or they haven't even sat through a team meeting yet. And so, they see the team values written on the wall, but what does it mean to them if they haven't really taken that ownership over them? So I had this team that I was working with, and there was this big disconnect on what the company values were. And it was this great teachable moment for the front office manager to approach that situation with authenticity and actually have the conversation with this new employee that we have this level of customer service and this patient experience that we offer to our patients, and it is in line with our company values, and the behaviors that I'm seeing from you are not in line with the company values. And that doesn't mean that you don't fit with the team, but that means that we need to kind of look at things and make sure that we are acting consistently and giving every single customer that high level of care and what I call the velvet rope experience. Um, and so it's that authenticity, as leaders, we provide the context for the teams to provide consistently authentic and certainty in the excellence and level of care that we provide. And then curiosity, it's all about asking the right questions so that we can help people along on their journey. In the hearing healthcare world, it's helping them along their hearing healthcare journey. But in sales, it's automobile sales, it's helping people along that journey to their perfect vehicle. And again, we touched on curiosity from the triangle of trust last week. And it's all about that, staying in that curiosity and playing there, asking more than one question. If you think you know the answer, ask 3 more questions, and just continue asking the questions until you're reaching that level of empathy. In the hearing healthcare world, I'll share a couple of questions that I love hearing from my front office teams. And it's, if a patient calls and they're frustrated, they're down a sense, it's not enjoyable to not have all your senses, and so they're often frustrated. And so really slowing down and asking the questions: when was the last time you experienced a change in your hearing? How certain are you that your environment is not impacting the way that you hear? Could it be possible that you need to have your hearing evaluated? And so just continuing to ask the questions until you are so certain that you can make that recommendation and that support to get that patient to making an actionable step. And then the last pillar of the ACE framework is excellence. And every patient interaction should reflect top tier service. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that velvet rope experience. We all love to feel special. I mean, Mike, when was the last time you went into a business that's a busy business, but they remembered you by name? And how does that make you feel? It's
I mean, do Mexican food restaurants count? Like they see me,
yes,
they're like, "Oh, here's 2 quesos for Mike." Like that's for sure. That's for sure part of it. Absolutely, it helps you feel seen and feel valued, not like just somebody else who may or may not leave the tip that they want to get. Right? It's a great example.
yeah, absolutely. And you know, we the team that I'm working with right now, we make notes in our patients' charts of, oh, this patient loves Sprite. Let's make sure that we have a Sprite in the fridge for their appointment. Or they really like the pomegranate sparkling water. We've got to make sure we've got that out. And so it's just these little things that really do make a big impact, on the customer experience, on the guest experience. And speaking of those small changes, it's that marginal gains theory where you're making these small little incremental changes for this greater impact.
Mm.
Um, and so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about excellence. It's really elevating the customer experience and providing that velvet rope experience for every single person every time. Um, I I've got one more little example or things to think about, I guess, when it comes to excellence. When you go shopping at Tiffany's, at the jewelry store, it doesn't matter if you're spending $150 on one of their smaller little pendants or a sterling silver chain, or $2,500 on a pair of earrings. You're going to be treated the same way. You're going to get your stuff boxed up beautifully in a pretty little Tiffany's bag. And it's that it's that experience that you're getting and that you're paying for. And that's what we want to offer to customers, guests, patients. And so kind of building that into your team and your team values, that yeah, if we're asking a patient or asking a customer to spend any amount of money, we want them to feel like it's of value, and that doesn't always have to be of monetary value. It could just be in the way that it's making them feel. Um, so that is the ACE framework in a nutshell. There's a much longer training and workshop on it that is available, but that is it in a nutshell.
That was so great, Emily. Will you give us the ACE framework one more time? The three, the ACE, was you one more time for us?
Yeah, absolutely. It is A, authenticity, C, curiosity, and E, excellence. And I like to say that, it's ACE so that you can ace every customer, guest, client interaction.
And I love that. Like what you're putting handles on hope, giving us not just something to just say go and do it, but you're also saying this is how it works. And I love that. One of my favorite things as you're explaining that and walking us through that is not only when you're talking about the velvet rope experience, it's not only something that helps the client feel seen, valued. You mentioned the Sprite. Like not only that, but even with like the Tiffany's bag, there's some sort of a symbol that kind of goes with it. So not only do they feel awesome, but then it also gives them an opportunity to let other people know that they feel kind of awesome there too. I think that's a tremendous gift that you can give to your clients. And I mean, I understand exactly what you mean by the velvet rope experience. That's fantastic. Thank you for walking us through that. Uh,
Yeah, definitely.
so what we're doing on the next part of our workshop is two things. Emily brought a great three-thing framework, the ACE framework, and then now I've just got two questions for us. Whenever we have these questions, um, for me, I think it's really about am I being curious or am I being critical? Am I being curious or am I being critical? And in chapter 5 of my book, I was writing about that. You know, this book it's 46 bite-sized chapters on how to communicate better at work, at home, and in your community, both online and off. And on some level, it was really difficult for me to write this down because a lot of it's like I'm trying to coach up the person in the mirror. And this is one of those things. Am I being curious or am I being critical? And in chapter 5, I'm just talking about it. It's a great question to help us with our perspectives because I'm not trying to convince you to do a thing or not do a thing. Really, I'm just asking the question. It's for my own motives. Hey, Mike, are you being curious? Or are you being critical? And um, in the book, I've got 46 bite-sized chapters with 40 blind spot alerts because we've all stepped in something we didn't see coming. And it's written on a sixth grade reading level. My hope is that every manager and leader, organizational leader, will have a copy on their desk and be able to open it up to the table of contents and say, okay, yeah, here's chapter 5, curious or critical, question mark. Okay, it's just that easy to try to remind me of what it is. Another thing that's important for me to bring out here is blind spot alert number 8. Now, I only can bring this up because it slapped me in the face on more than one, in more than one instance. And it says, I'll just read from the book here. I'm not gonna lie, it does feel pretty awesome to say, hey, Emily, let me read you a little thing from the book that I wrote because I think it's helpful. That's why I'm not tooting my own horn. Um, Being a naturally critical person is not an excuse or a reason to weaponize your critical nature. It is possible to have a critical eye with a curious heart. There's always a way to say what you want to say and value the person you're saying it to. So many times, if you're like me, whenever you hear something or you see something that's different than the way you would do it, maybe your first instinct is not, huh, that's an interesting choice. I wonder why they chose to do that. Maybe it's a little bit more critical. I'm an Enneagram 2, which means I'm a helper. And I used to think I was a 2 with a 3 wing, which means I'm an ambitious people pleaser, which sounds kind of nice. I used to work in church for about 2.5 decades. I mean, tell us you're a people pleaser without telling us you're a people pleaser. But what I've come to realize, the more I understand myself and the more I understand the Enneagram, I'm actually really not a 2 with a 3 wing. I'm more of a 2 with a 1 wing. And a 2 with a 1 wing is more of a judgmental servant. And that stings. I mean, that really does sting, um, not only for me, but you can look and see kind of in the rearview mirror, okay, well, this makes sense that I would make some of those choices if my inclination is to be more critical than curious. So the work with exactly what to say, the continual reminders of curiosity being the fuel to great conversations, that's so helpful to me. And it's not just something that was helpful to me. And I thought, well, let me stick this in a book. This is something that is helpful to me. And it's a gauge, it's a way for me to measure my choices not only every day, but many times every day. It's a great mile marker, and it's not designed to kind of stick your finger in your face and say, "What's wrong with you? Why are you doing that again?" That's not it at all. It's a reminder to say, instead of saying, "What's wrong with them?" Maybe it's a better way to say, "I wonder what happened to them." And Emily, when you're talking about, the customers you have in the hearing care world, instead of saying, "Oh, they probably played their Montel too loud," or Mike, whatever, Mike just kept singing in the sessions too long, it's just our nature to make some assumptions about what may have happened that brought them to this situation. But what I loved about your ACE framework and what I want to tie in here is you're not telling the person what their best option is. You're asking more questions that say, "Oh, have you experienced this, and what's your experience with not hearing things as well as maybe you used to? What do you understand about how the role your environment could like?" It's a very, very similar path. And regardless of the audience that you're speaking to, the opportunity to be curious and hear more about their experience instead of justify your answer to the question that they haven't even really asked yet. It's kind of a game changer in the world of sales. And as a straight commission self-employed business owner, I want my entire sales staff, which is the guy in the mirror, like I want all of them to learn to be more curious instead of making recommendations. Because if you make recommendations, as Phil shared with us several times, when you make recommendations without hearing their experience, then it really is kind of like going to the doctor and the doctor prescribing medication or prescribing treatments without actually doing the examination in a roundabout way. But they could get sued for medical malpractice. It's still, even though I don't have a medical license, obviously, but still, it's the same weight of someone who wants to lead your customers and clients well and serve them well. And one of the best ways to do that is to try to be more curious than to be more critical. And you can always find some ways to tweak some things and still value the person that you're speaking to. And in 2025, which is when we're recording this, I mean, there are many opportunities to disagree with people for any number of reasons. But oftentimes, instead of trying to have a conversation, and for me, a goal of a conversation is to be able to come back and have another conversation. A lot of times, what we do is we turn the conversation into a debate. And then, if there's a debate, a lot of times there's a winner and a loser. But most of the time, excuse me, most of the time, I would say nobody really wins. And one of the ways that we can put handles on hope and take that into our conversations is to really try to be more curious than to be more critical. Let me just ask real quick in the chat, if you have something like maybe how about this on a scale of 1 to 10, one being it's awful, I'm awful at being critical, or 10, I'm awesome at being curious. Like just kind of put in the chat what you think you might be. If you're watching it on replay, go ahead and bring it back and put it in the comments on a scale of 1 to 10. One being awful, I'm super critical. 10 being awesome, I'm very, very curious. Hopefully not in too annoying of a way. Where do you find yourself? I'm going to go first just because I think vulnerability is a superpower. And I would say probably on a really good day, I'm a 7, which means I've got some room to grow. I'm not as bad as I used to be. Fantastic. But I got lots of room to improve. I'm learning and I'm growing. One of the things that helps me with that is to remember I can have a critical eye. I can notice when something's out of place or out of my preference, right? But still have a curious heart and still value someone else. That's helped me be part of many more solutions when I'm curious than I ever was when I was chronically critical. Um, Emily, what do you think about that? Let me ask a better question. What's your experience on a scale of 1 to 10 with critical and curious?
Yeah, I love that. And what I was thinking about while you were talking about this, Mike, is is what Phil refers to as simple swaps. And
Mm.
so, you know, if your gut knee-jerk reaction is a critical thought, how could you swap that into a more curious thought or a more curious phrase? And so when you were thinking or when you were sharing, you know, like, oh, well, what's wrong with them or why did they do that way? What is your experience with doing it that way? And kind of just swapping that, you know, critical brain into a more curious brain. Um, but I love that blind spot alert too of, you know, it's okay to recognize that maybe you are a naturally critical person and you can still have that critical mind or that critical eye, but have a curious heart. And I love that phrasing. That's because I definitely have found myself in situations like that where I'm thinking like, why why did they do that? Why why was that the choice that was made? And so yeah, remembering that curiosity of like, well, I can still think that or I could still see that, you know, okay, I wouldn't have done it that way, but why don't I stay a little more curious and ask why? You know, what was your experience or help me understand why you did it this way?
Help me understand is a great one. I mean, that's well, even earlier today we were texting. I said a thing and you said,
Yes.
well, help me understand what you mean by that. And it's really not shade, it's just clarity. We're just
Yeah.
looking for clarity. And I think part of the putting handles on the hope and saying, okay, this is a tool. We want to use it to propel my conversations and move them forward. So I think that's really an important thing. I noticed, Steve, you said in the chat that you're a six. Man, I appreciate you being honest and saying this is where I'm at. And look at, hey, listen, it could, if you're like me, I'm looking in the review saying I might be a six today, but I for sure there was a day I was a two. Like there for sure was a moment where I could just I don't know about you. For me, a lot of my more critical thoughts and possibly actions comes when I'm driving. I don't know how that is for you. Trying to be better. I'm learning and I'm growing, and so that's important. One of the things, kind of building on this, there's an article that I published on exactly what to say.com, and I'm going to link up to that in the chat. So we can kind of put again the whole goal for this is to put handles on hope and really be able to move these conversations forward at work, at home, and in your community. And the other thing that I wanted to share tonight that goes right along with that, we had the three things on the ACE framework, right? And so that was hold on, don't tell me that was to be that was authenticity first, and then it was curiosity, and then it was excellence, like the velvet rope experience, right? Fantastic. I'll pass so far anyway. Um, and then the two thing is just a question: am I being curious or am I being critical? And that can go anything from driving to the way that people put stuff in the dishwasher. Like, am I going to just let it ride, or am I going to put it in the right spot? Like, you don't have to answer that out loud. But and this is not something that's probably going to cause a fist fight at home, but it's a good gauge. It's a good idea to see, like if this was like a weight loss thing, it's like a non-scale victory, right? So it's a totally different thing. And then the number one thing that I want to share tonight is around a filter. Now, a filter, we've got a couple of different definitions for it, so I'm going to put a little context to the content here. The filter could be a social media, could because a filter on social media is just going to make a thing look better than it actually really does look. Like that's the whole purpose of the filter, no matter if you're on Snapchat, Instagram, wherever the filters are for pictures, videos, whatever that looks like for you. That's not the kind of filter I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of filter that we deal with both at work, at home. You've got air filters. We've got water that's been filtered so many times. You've got an oil filter. You got all these different filters, and all of those kind of filters are designed to do one thing, and that's keep the junk out. And I was thinking, certainly when I was going through the curious and critical and all that stuff, I was thinking, okay, we've got a filter and all these things. We've got a filter for our coffee so it doesn't get chewy. Like if you're drinking chewy coffee, we probably need to swap out the filters. We're probably not doing it right. But we don't really have a filter for our words. And so I came up with this, I call it the H2O filter, and it's chapter 34 in my book. And this actually, I started teaching this in schools to fifth grade students. And it's two H's and an O. The first H is we want to bring hope to the person we're talking to. The second H is we want to bring honor to the person we're talking about. And then thirdly, we want to look for an opportunity to serve them. Bring hope to the person you're talking to, handles on hope, right? Bring hope to the person you're talking to, bring honor to the person you're talking about, and then look for an opportunity to serve them, comma, and serve with them. Man, when I when I'm very critical, I'm not the words that come out of my mouth next, they're not bringing hope to the person I'm talking to. In fact, maybe people start ducking, like they're trying to kind of get out of the way because it feels like they're maybe aimed at you. And I mean, we just came out of an election year. Like it's one of those things. Listen, you don't have to be talking about politics to feel like your jab's always up and you're having conversations like that. Whenever I'm trying to bring hope to the person I'm talking to, I'm just wanting to know, like, I wonder how this is going to make the other person feel. What's it like to be on the other side of me whenever I say this thing? Uh, so, and when I do that, when I'm trying to bring hope to the person I'm talking to, their mood is going to go up a little, their attitude. Now, I can't control that, but I'm for sure not trying to bring him down. I'm for sure not trying to add some criticalness to their life, right? Trying to bring hope to the person I'm talking to. That's a big one. And especially when we work with organizations, I get hired for two reasons. One is keep the locker room from becoming toxic. Number two is remove the blind spots from the leaders. That's how we got 40 blind spot alerts in the book, right? Like that's the thing that we're doing. And one of the things that makes the locker room toxic faster than anything is gossip in the locker room. And I view the locker room as anything as soon as you get out of your car or if you're walking or you take public transportation, as soon as you get to your place of employment, whether that's the kitchen table, at your home, or whatever it is, as soon as you get there, everywhere else, that's the domain of the organization, that's the locker room. And one of the biggest ways to turn a locker room toxic is to let gossip run rampant. And I mean, we learned this in middle school. If someone's going to say something bad to you about somebody else, there's a good chance they'll say something bad about you to somebody else. So when we're trying to bring hope to the person we're talking to and bring honor to the person we're talking about, then gossip goes away. Now, I always get the big eye roll. I have done, my name is Mike. I speak for a living. I have done that talk over 1,000 times. And every time I do it, if I'm doing it to students in schools, K-12 schools, or to organizations, specifically in schools, I'll either get one of two responses, either, oh no, got me, busted, or the other one is like a big eye roll. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're talking about gossip again. But it's not that different in the workplace, except in the workplace, theoretically, we should know better, right? Because we've had lots of time to practice. And I was doing a session for school teachers, a professional development session, and we were talking about gossip. And there was I told a story of a business owner who has a one strike policy on gossip. The first time you get caught gossiping by anyone in the organization, you get a warning. Doesn't have to be the person with the name on the building. You get a warning. The second time you get a box, bye Felicia, you're gone, like you're out. And I said that there were 24, 25 folks in the room, and one nice lady leaned over to another nice lady and said obnoxiously loud, loud enough for everyone to hear, well, if we did that at our place, no one would have a job. And they both look at each other and start kind of laughing, kind of like making a joke out of it. And everyone else in the room was silent. And what I realized immediately in that moment was no, everybody would not have a job, but for sure somebody wouldn't not have a job. And
Mhm.
and also what that let me know was they knew it was a thing, but they had allowed it to continue. Back to the definition of culture, the way we do what we do and the way we allow it to be done. This is how we do it. If you say we don't tolerate gossip and yet it's a constant thing that happens, then not only are you not part of the solution, but you're actually contributing as a leader, an organizational leader, departmental leader, team leader. You're contributing to the problem. And I know that because I have been a leader who empowered the gossip in the locker room. And it's so hard to get a hold of, so hard to get a handle of, and it's nearly impossible to get out of the locker room. Way worse than mold, trying to get that out of your house or out of your whatever the situation is. It's just mind-boggling, and yet it's something that we, the people who are leading organizations, a lot of the time, not all the time, a lot of the time, it stays in our blind spot, and we think, well, you'll never be able to totally get rid of that. Okay, maybe not totally, but if we implement the H2O filter, bring hope to the person you're talking to, bring honor to the person you're talking about. And then the O is look for an opportunity to serve them and serve with them. We've got 3 kids. Growing up, we had 3 kids. And one of the best ways after, how do I say that? After my 3 kids, I'll smile, raise my eyebrows up. After my 3 kids earned an opportunity to, be it have time out or choose extra chores or however else we may have parented, um, if at least more than one of them was a perpetrator, then it was an easy solution. Hey, listen, look, way to go. You don't have to. You get to work together. You have an opportunity to serve together, to serve each other and serve with each other. Now, I'm leaning into that a little bit, maybe a little bit too much. However, what I know is true is a lot of the miscommunication, a lot of the frustration, a lot of the stray arrows that go from gossip, they really come out of a place of the person who's saying it not feeling seen, valued, and heard, not feeling like their not only customer experience but their team experience is a velvet rope, to say the least. Like they feel like they're an outsider, or like the only way they can get in is by making jokes. What happens when we implement the H2O filter? Gossip goes away, mean girls goes away, bullying goes away, and not only that, we are consistently curious.
Mhm.
Instead of, again, what happened? What's wrong with them? Instead of that, it's like, I wonder why they made that choice. And then instead of it just cultivating a spirit of, or even a practice of tearing each other down, it's an entirely different thing of looking for reasons to bring hope to the person you're talking to, looking for reasons to build them up. Instead of telling them what they did wrong, then we're looking for reasons to compliment what they did right. The whole theme of the night is the locker room, and how we're tying everything in with the ACE framework, with the being curious versus being critical, with the H2O filter. It's all about the locker room. And if you're talking to public schools or any schools, then it's the locker room and the lounge, like the teachers lounge, like it's for sure how that goes. Emily, let me just ask you, what's been your experience with some stuff where, I mean, maybe you haven't put the H2O filter in practice because it's still pretty new to you, but what's your experience in seeing something where for sure they weren't doing it that way, and then what were some of the ripples that may have come from it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you made a really great point about having a culture of, oh, we don't tolerate gossip, but then seeing it repeat because it's not something that's being addressed. And I think that goes back to your big question for organizations of what is your current culture of communication costing your organization? And if your current culture of communication is allowing gossip in your organization, then what is that costing your organization? And it's probably a lot because, like you said, that's creating this toxic environment, this toxic locker room. I know that, you know, in one of the practices that I've worked with, and it was, going back to that season of really high turnover. And when you have really high turnover, you don't have that time and that ability to have a really cohesive team. And so there starts the you start to get these little bickers here and there, and they start really small, and it might be something that like, oh yeah, they totally did something that is not in line with the way that we usually do things. And instead of addressing it right then and there, it starts to become this little thing. And then there's another little thing, and then another little thing. And it just blows up and becomes a much bigger issue. And then you've got a toxic locker room.
Blow up is exactly the right. It's exactly the right term, and you don't see it coming,
No, no.
and you think everything's under control, and that's, I mean, that's fine. Of course, we want to think that, especially the areas that we lead, right? Or if our name's on the door or the wall or the building or whatever. But that's the whole reason, like why my my business, what we try to do is solve the problem of division and disunity in the workplace. And I served in the local church for 2.5 decades, and I realized, like, if I'm trying to solve the problem of division and disunity at church, man, I mean, never not have a job. But the church is never the building; it's always the people. And so that's one of the things that makes this not only an easy transition, but what's it costing you? You brought up the question that I ask a lot. Your current culture of communication or current culture of gossip, what's it costing the organization? And I just want to pause for a second. Let's put that in the chat. Like, what's something that a toxic locker room, what's something that a gossip filled locker room, what is it costing the organization? I mean, and if you're watching on replay, go ahead and put it in the comments section. I mean, it for sure costs morale. It costs turnover. Um, that, I mean, that's just getting the start. Cost unity. Great point, Steve. Absolutely, it costs unity, and and so often we look at the problem and the person closest to the problem, and we blame that problem on that person. Especially, like, I mean, any technical malfunction, and the person who always gets blamed is the one closest to the faders or to the lights or to the sound, whatever the thing is. Well, that's not because they're inept. It's because it's so much easier to push blame on somebody. And when we push blame on someone, we feel better for like a nanosecond. But then that person, especially if they work with us, they're a teammate, and we pointed our fingers at them and said, everybody, look at that guy, look at that lady. They're not only not part of the solution, they're part of the problem. And no matter, this goes back to some of the stats that we've gotten in this study, that's really unreleased to the public yet. But there was one of them. I want to say it was 47% of people. I'll go back and look it up in a second. About 47% of people have been caused angst over a miscommunication, or even a text or an email, something that was said that was hurtful, that caused them actual angst. Steve, you're talking about unity. Yeah, huh? That for sure will cost us some unity in the workplace, but it's in our blind spot most of the time. So it feels like I'm trying to go into a second hour already. I'm not trying to do that. The thing for us to think about, and if you're watching it on replay, I would love for you to put in the comments as well. What is a culture of gossip? What is it costing the organization? It always costs in people. It always costs in production. Sometimes it also costs in profit. It costs in so many ways. The point is, it's costing. And then the question that I heard Phil say on a podcast in 2019, well, what's it costing you? Okay, well, how long has that been going on? Great question, one that I never want to answer. And then a worse question is, well, how long do you anticipate that going on? And then he just waits. How long do I anticipate it going on? And then they'll say, well, I guess that's why we're talking to you, right? Like, but so often I think people think, I'm not sure how to deal with this. Well, how about this? How about you start with the ACE framework where we started, right? You want to be authentic. You don't want to try to be somebody else. I'm not trying to reteach what you already taught, Emily. You want to be authentic. You want to have curiosity, and then you want to do it with excellence. I love the phrase of the velvet rope experience. So good. And then you want to be am I being curious? Am I being critical? It's just a question. Now, I'm not putting a poll out on any poll USA or whatever, so everybody can. I don't need you to weigh in on the voices in my head. It's a question for me. Am I being curious or am I being critical? And regardless of the answer, a way to be better about that is to utilize the H2O filter. Bring hope to the person you're talking to, bring honor to the person you're talking about, and then look for an opportunity to serve them and serve with them. And maybe that's something that you're not currently doing. The great news is you're just not currently doing it yet. All you need is a perspective changer, maybe. And so this leads us into the lightning round. And one of the things I love about perspective changers, and I'm getting ready to toss it over to you, Emily, to share with us uh, the three perspective change. Again, my name is Mike, and I speak for a living. This is going great. Um, I used to stutter, and also I had a lisp, which made me an easy target. Um, Anyway, perspective changes. Something that we all aim to do in a conversation is to invite the other person to see things from a slightly different point of view. All we're reading from here is from the exactly what to role play deck. These are cards that are really, it's like chat GPT, it's like prompts, giving us questions, helping us redirect the words that we're going to say before they get out of our mouth so we can be constantly, consistently more curious. And so perspective changer is not like a silver bullet to win an argument. It's something just to invite someone else to see things from a slightly different perspective. Emily, what's your experience with utilizing perspective changers and how it's helped you in conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you said it's not a silver bullet to get to the answer that you want. It's a dance. It's a dance with your conversation partner. And, as Phil says, the person that's asking the questions is leading the conversation. And so if you're the dance partner that's leading the dance, then you're the one that's staying curious and continuing to ask these conversations. Um, you know, what do you understand about your current workplace culture? And so just kind of shifting the it I think I like to think of perspective changers as but it's kind of going back to your critical or curious is you're swapping that critical question for a curious question.
Hmm.
And it's I love using perspective changers in my coaching team meetings and in progress meetings too, where you're maybe giving some feedback. And we're going to be talking about feedback next week, and so we'll tease that a little bit when we talk about the date for next week. But I love using perspective changers when I'm using feedback with my teams, for especially for performance reviews.
I mean, that's a great point and a great example from using it because you're saying that I see this from my perspective, and is it possible that maybe you haven't seen it yet? One of the things that we do often in our presentations is, okay, what do you see when you look this way? And the obvious answer sounds like a trick question. The obvious answer is a
Look.
book. Of course, I see a book, and that's fine. I also see a book, but I'm also holding a pen on the other side. And when I shared that earlier today with the Chamber of Commerce in that small group cohort, they're like, "Oh, I see what you're saying now." And again, it's not like you're so dumb you can't even see the. It's not any of that. It's not. It's never stump the chump. It's inviting someone to participate in the conversation. So now it's not me against them, but now it's us versus the problem, right? So I think that's and I spent a lot of time talking about gossip tonight as a big issue, but I love the way that you led into that first perspective changer of what do you understand. That's a great way to invite me to be part of the solution and not accuse me of anything, but I'm just asking, what do you understand about whatever the situation is? What do you understand about how maintaining a curious mindset can support your ability to make a recommendation? Wow, that's a great question. It's as though you wrote it specifically for this training or something. It's very, very helpful just to have just to have cue cards, right? That's a lot of what this is. What's our next perspective changing question?
Yeah. How important is it to you? How important is it to you that you provide your customers with all the options?
I love that question. And I love that you didn't ask me to guess how important it is to Emily. On a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a deal do you think this is to me? Like, what? That sounds like like feels like all the mob movies I've ever seen where there's plastic on the floor. So, like, it's not good at all. And so, I love that. How important is it to you? And then
And then,
water, listen up, because then you give them a chance to speak instead of just let me show you all the questions I know to ask, right? So, I love the way you did that. What do you understand? How important is it to you? What's the third perspective changing question?
and then the third one is if then. And so, kind of playing off of what do you understand about maintaining a curious mindset or about how maintaining a curious mindset can support your ability to make a recommendation. How important is it to you that you provide your customers with all the options? If you would implement some micro changes to the way your team communicates with customers, then you could see drastic improvements in overall customer satisfaction.
Mm. That last one sounds like you definitely have some experience in providing the velvet rope experience and what you've been able to see with those clients on repeat, on repeat, on repeat when it becomes predictable, right? So then you're back to putting context to the content. It's not just do as I say, it's when we do it this way, or if you do it this way, then here's what like it's such a great reinforcement. Um, let me ask: is there anything else? What's well? I'll just ask it the way you presented it. What do you understand about how asking the wrong question at just the wrong time can for sure lead to a knee-jerk reaction by somebody else, or can cause a rift in the workplace? Back to Steve's answer earlier. What is something that gossip can really mess up? Your answer was productivity. I said morale. Steve said unity. I mean, that's such a great. It's a great result because we're none of us are hypothesizing. It's what we have seen happen over and over. And I I think people I don't think people want that to happen, but I think they're not exactly sure how to keep that from happening, which is why we have the honor and the opportunity of presenting this three C's to a thriving workplace. Fantastic. It's been great so far, and we're almost to the home stretch. We've gotten the ACE framework. In fact, I'm not going to take the author's thunder. One more time, Emily, will you run us through the ACE framework one more time as quickly as you'd like? We've got about 6 minutes until it's the top of the hour, and we've got one other thing to let people know about.
Yeah, so that ACE framework is starting from a place of, and it's actually very similar. So I do want to bring up the triangle again, in that the triangle of trust isn't just an equilateral triangle that each side you're giving the same amount of attention to, and that it's just going to happen once. It's going to go around and around, just like a dance, like we talked about before. And that's the same thing with the ACE framework. I mean, we might start with A because it's the first letter in ACE and in the alphabet, but that doesn't mean that you're always starting with A, authenticity. Um, you're going to be coming from a place of curiosity as well. You're providing this level of excellence, but they're all connected, and they're all, I said pillars, but they're also, it's like a three-legged stool too. You're not going to be able to sit on a two-legged stool if it usually has three legs. So you're going to be using them all the time, and all together, not one before the other. But it's A, authenticity, C, curiosity, and E, excellence.
That's fantastic. It's as though you wrote that together. You put all that together yourself. Nice job. That's fantastic. The other question we had was, am I being curious or am I being critical? It's a really good catch, mile marker, something to help gauge your perspective. And then the other thing that we talked about was the H2O filter. You bring hope to the person you're talking to, bring honor to the person you're talking about, and look for an opportunity to serve them and serve with them. Uh, so good, so helpful, and it all works together with the three. I don't think I put the perspective changers in there yet. I said what it is, but I didn't put them in there yet. If I'll put them in there right quick, if you want to tell us what to expect next week and what for both for us, those are who those of us who are here, and also those of us who are watching on replay.
Yeah, so I did tease it a little bit. So next Tuesday, we're going to be focusing a lot of our 3 C's of a thriving workplace conversation around feedback. Like tonight, we talked a lot about how all of these factors, all of this, it builds that positive locker room. It keeps the locker room from getting toxic. And so next week we're going to be focusing a lot on feedback and what that means in a thriving workplace. So again, it's going to be on a Tuesday. So it's next Tuesday, the 24th of June. And it's the same Zoom link, but it's not the same time, and it's also not the same content. So it's going to be, I'm in Pacific time, so I'll start there, but it's going to be noon Pacific, 1 Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Central, and 3 p.m. Eastern. And so, if you enjoyed this content, who do you know that you could invite and bring with you next week?
That's fantastic. We're not only going to do that, we're also going to, when we post about it next week, we're also going to add we'll have a Facebook event so people can kind of see. Also, to Emily's immediate point, who do you know, regardless of where they are in the country or in the world, if you want to do the math, 2 p.m. Central plus 6 hours for England, carry the one. Hold on, let me get my calculator. I'm kidding. But no matter where they are, if you know someone who also works, then they could use the 3 C's in a thriving workplace. And to Emily's point, it's similar content in theme, but certainly not exactly the same thing. In fact, we're talking about an entirely different thing. Um, you already teased it out. So one of my favorite things to talk about is feedback. Because I've got, I'm going to go ahead and give you, just in case you're not, whether you're watching it here, you're live or you're watching on replay, you're not able to make it next week. Like the number one thing I want to share with you next week is about feedback. And if your feedback is not designed to build up and encourage, it's not feedback, it's target practice. At least that's how it feels to the person receiving it. Now, there is a way back to uh, being curious, not critical. Having a critical eye with a curious heart. There is a way for you to point out something that doesn't meet the guidelines slash this is how we do it here. I should have sang that. In perspective, and still be able to honor the person that you're correcting. The thing that I don't like about that is as someone receiving feedback, it's easy to dismiss whatever they're saying. Oh, they just don't like Mike. Like it's one of those kind of things. There's at least 10% truth in all feedback, even the stuff that I don't like. It's helpful to me to be able to see, okay, I'm receiving the things that they're saying and then able to switch it around. So I'm so excited for us to be back together at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, and noon p.m. Right, noon p.m. Pacific. Uh,
Noon p.m. Pacific.
on Tuesday, the 24th. Listen, we really appreciate you joining us for this time. Emily, I'll let you take it away and do the final sign off.
Yeah. You can also follow both of us on Instagram, Emily Catherine Coaching, and
Sold out, Mike.
so yeah, we'll post things there throughout the week until next week. And then Steve, if you want to drop your email in the chat, we can send you any deliverables from this training tonight. We do have a slideshow as well.
Absolutely. We would love to do that for you. Now, one thing, listen, you're getting the 2.0 version of this. Because last week we had most of the things that you saw here, but there's one thing that we didn't have, and I'm kind of glad that we do have it. Um, 'Cause I'm a little bit partial to it. Um, it's just a little outro music. Like we had a little intro music, and then we got a little outro music.
Running and running, running and running.
And if it's not coming through the Zoom link, then it's just Black Eyed Peas. Let's get it started. Because I don't know what you got going after we get done, but whatever it is, it's time for you to get it started.
Lose our inhibition, follow your intuition, free it and so and break away from the tradition. Cause when we be out, when it's full of eat out, you wouldn't believe how we wow shit. Furniture is burned out, furniture is burned out. Act up from Northwest East Side. Everybody here, let's get into it here. Let's go, come on, start, get it started, let's get it started. Let's get it started, yeah. Let's get it started. Let's get it started, yeah. Let's get it started. Let's get it started, yeah. Let's get it started. Let's get it started, yeah. Lose control of body and soul. Don't move too fast, people just take it slow. Don't get ahead, just jump into it. Y'all hear about it? Please do it. Get started. Get stupid. Don't worry about it. People will walk you through it step by step like an infant new kid. Inspired.
This is me turning the fader down. We'll see you guys later. Steve, thanks for joining us, man. Bye, Emily.